that they were learning. It's not just about singing, it's not just about being happy. It's about allowing ourselves to breathe. Because for 6 days, as we say each week, we work very, very, very hard to prove our worth, to prove our value to our friends, to our bosses, to our whomever in our lives. And this day comes as a gift to give us an awareness that we have worth just for being alive. And we enter that headspace, we enter that experience of hopefully checking in with ourselves and reminding ourselves of our worth by singing. And when do we get the chance to really sing full voice in public with people that we know, people we don't know? It's kind of a rare thing. It's a special gift, a special technology from our ancestors. And so we'll move throughout this service, specifically Kabbalat Shabbat, of singing these prayers, welcoming us into this cocoon or chrysalis of rest, hopefully allowing us to check in with ourselves, to breathe, to sing out loud, to enter a 25-hour period that then allows us to perhaps fly or simply work productively or be whatever we need to be after we've had the full experience of rest. We'll begin our service on page 130 with Lechu Naranana.
Take a moment to breathe, maybe wrap our chrysalis a little tighter around ourselves, settle in to Shabbat, into this moment of rest, this moment of transformation, as we welcome in so soon the Sabbath bride, just sitting in that anticipation, that excitement before who knows what is going to happen next, who knows what the week holds. All we know is we have this moment and we can just breathe in and sit in together. Page 138. We remain standing and turn to page 144. Page 150. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu lema'anta. Al kein Adonai, Eloheinu meshofteinu, u'kumenu nasiya lechukecha. Lenizmach b'divrei Toratcha. U'b'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki em chayenu ve'orech yameinu, u'bahem neged yomo v'layla. Be'ahava Page 154.
I often say at services in different ways, sometimes in Divrei Torah, sometimes between services or between prayers, that ritual and prayer is a conscious expression of the self. And what I mean by that is that it is a way of externalizing something within us that we don't even realize is there. Sometimes the words on the page don't feel especially resonant, and sometimes they really do. But going through each prayer in our liturgy is a way of releasing something in ourselves. And each Friday night, we pray the text Hashkivenu, and each Friday night, we talk about our vulnerability and our fragility. But I think that tonight, especially when we pray this prayer, it's a way of unlocking something within us, something painful that we've been holding onto. I think for many of us, in the wake of the shooting in Buffalo, are yet again keenly aware of white supremacy and its violence. We're aware of the availability of weapons of war in our country and how much fear so many people are just by waking up in the morning and going outside. We're sitting with this awareness every single day, and of course this past week we have a greater awareness of it, but it's in our bodies somehow. And as we think about the ongoing war in Ukraine, as we think of so many conflicts around the world, there's something within us that is unsettled. Something is aware that the world is broken. And we know that there are some things we can do, and there is a lot that we can't do. And so praying, though praying is only a way station toward action, praying is a way of externalizing exactly that thing. It's a way of getting out that feeling. It's honoring what is inside of us, which is so much pain about the state of the world. We take that into praying Hashkivenu, and then all the more so Mishaberach when we pray on behalf of other people. Turn now to Hashkivenu on page 160.
Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, L'shalom, V'hamidenu, Shomreinu l'chaim, Ufros aleinu, Sukkah shelomecha, v'takneinu, be'etzah tova milvanecha, le'hoshienu lema'an shemecha, l'hagim badeinu. Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, Yerushalayim. Page 371. Bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing
Naomi Diamond.
Larry Strauss.
Ellen Lansner, Alsabo.
Susie Berkowitz and Sarah Kramer.
Monica Bott, Eleanor, and James Ben James.
Peter Moore.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Please rise for Vishamru, page 162. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael, et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat, לדורותם מריתו. there on page 570. Leshem yichud, kuchabrichu shignetei, hineni mechanu mezuzah, lekayem mitzvah aseh, shel sfirat ha'omer, shel sfirat ha'omer, shel sfirat ha'omer, shel sfirat ha'omer, sheva Shabbatot, timimotehena, sheva Shabbatot, timimotehena. We now rise for blessing of the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu, b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, al sfirat ha'omer, al sfirat ha'omer, al sfirat ha'omer, al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom chamisha ושלושים יום, שכם חמישה שבועות העומר. איי, 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 may be seated.
It is now an honor to introduce a few people, although I'll turn it over to Rabbi Josh Weinberg in just a moment to introduce, because I would like the opportunity also to introduce our friends from the Israel Religious Action Committee. What am I saying? Sorry, Religious Action Center. Just got so excited thinking about what IRAC stands for, but it is a real honor to get to have you both here. And I know that Rabbi Josh Weinberg knows you a little bit better than I do, and so I'm going to let him introduce you. But I want to say that it's a real honor to be in a community like this one for a few reasons. Before I introduce Rabbi Weinberg, because this is a community that really grapples with what Israel is. And we're in a time where we know that Israel is more fraught than ever before, and also it's harder to talk about than ever before. And yet we don't shy away from it. And there are so many people in this community who are committed to making sure this conversation happens. And I see Joanne Mort here, who has for years advocated for Israel to be part of the conversation in specific ways, justice-oriented ways in the reform movement. And of course, so many in our community. But now I'll turn it over to Rabbi Josh Weinberg, who is one such person, to formally introduce our guests from the Israel Religious Action Center, where I've been and I know so much about.
Well, thank you so much, Rabbi Green. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's really an honor to be here as a member of CBE, and I'm more of a Shabbat morning guy. Here on Friday nights so often, so it's really a pleasure. In addition to being a member of CBE, I also serve as the Vice President for Israel and Reform Zionism for the Union for Reform Judaism, the URJ, our umbrella body of all of our Reform congregations, and spend my days and nights thinking about how we can build that connection between the two largest Jewish communities here in the world, here in North America and in Israel, and how we can both advocate for the same values that we advocate here in the United States, also in Israel. That's what I love about CBE, as Rabbi Green just said. that we have this commitment to justice, and we read about it all of Kabbalat Shabbat, when we said Yishvot Tevel B'Tzedek U'B'Amim V'Misharim, that we have to judge all of the earth according to these principles of justice. And why should that not be the same when it comes to Israel? How many of you have had a conversation about Israel in the past year? And for how many of you are not even that? And for how many of those conversations were gentle, slightly contentious? And how many of you walked away from those conversations saying, you know, I wish I could do something about it. Like I wish I could, I feel far away and I feel frustrated and I feel like I'm seeing all these things happen. I wish I could do something. Well, I'm pleased to introduce to you two people who are doing something. Who are looking at the situation, who are looking at society, and seeing all the beauty that is the modern state of Israel, and also seeing where we can make a difference, where we can change, where we can improve, where we see really challenging problems. And we say, okay, it's our role to do that, because as Rabbi Green said earlier, when we think about our limitations, you know, what we can do and what we can't do, it is Anat Hoffman and Orly Erzberkovsky who love it when people say to them, oh, that's impossible. You can't do that. That's when they say, oh, watch us. That's when they say, oh, we're going to move mountains. And when they achieve something major, they say, okay, great, now let's build the next thing that we're going to do. Because Anat Hoffman started as an activist. She was a council person on the Jerusalem City Council, and I would say caused a lot of trouble there, and raised a lot of issues and raised her voice loudly. And in the 20 years, the 2 decades that she served as the executive director of the Israel Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, she has gotten more people in Israeli society, beyond the Reform movement, beyond the conservative movement, beyond our circle of like-minded people, to say, oh, wait a minute, maybe you're right. Maybe non-Orthodox Jews should have more rights and be recognized by the state. Oh, you're right. I didn't realize that we do have a racism problem here in Israel as well. We have to do something about it. She also serves as the chairperson of Women of the Wall. The past 33 years, 11 months a year, is standing there in the early morning, okay, facing serious opposition, hatred, violence. And standing in the face of it all, representing all of us as well. And in 2004, she did something also very smart. And then she hired a lawyer who was a member of our Reform congregation in Vaseret Zion, just outside of Jerusalem. And that lawyer became the head of the legal department. And after 18 years of working together, just last year, Orly Erzberkovsky became the director of the Israel Religious Action Center. It's taken the years of her experience and her wisdom and her activism, and is going to carry the torch forward to be a beacon not only on behalf of our movement, but to fulfill those prophecies and those aspirations laid out in Israel's Declaration of Independence, to be a society that is based upon freedom, justice, and equality. And it's such an honor to invite Anat Hoffman and Orly Erzberkovsky to join us tonight.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom. It has been my life's mission to move the Howard Cosell parking lot from the Hebrew University to New York. This is one of the rocks that's in the Howard Cosell parking lot at the Hebrew University. And from Jerusalem, I'd like to pass it along so you have a little piece of Jerusalem just to hold on to it. It's just an excellent parking lot with lots of rocks. And Israel is probably the most important historic development in our lifetime. It is an astounding achievement that we were able to go back to Israel and resurrect the dead Hebrew language. Speaking, the Hebrew alone is worth the whole Zionist movement. That alone, and it's the one Zionist achievement I am 100% behind. Because Hebrew is wiser than the people who speak it. It is wonderful language. I know it was rammed down your throats for the bar mitzvah, but if you really take a while to learn Hebrew, you will find that you're proud of this ancient, wise, beautiful language. I'm telling a tale out of school. Rachel, this Kabbalat Shabbat is wonderful, even without you. Matt and Jordan are stars. So that pride that you have from your prodigies, I have with all of you. So in a minute, you're going to hear from Oli, but just one more thing about Israel. Many Israelis will tell you that you don't have the right to interfere in Israeli affairs, voice your opinion, criticize what we're doing, despite the fact that Israel affects you and reflects on you every time we do some misguided decision. And they'll tell you that you don't have a right to interfere. You have to be like an ATM. Pay up and shut up. Don't tell us what to do. You don't pay taxes in Israel. You don't send your children to the army in Israel. Besides, we're a sovereign state. Take your noses out of our affairs. I want to inoculate you against the next Israeli that tells you that. No one can tell another Jew that he doesn't or she doesn't have a place around the table where we discuss what are the Jewish values of the Jewish state. And if we look at Israel today and we see ethnocentrism and racism and chauvinism, you have a right, no, you have a goddamn duty. You have a duty to say, these are not my Jewish values. I believe in tolerance and in equality and religious pluralism and democracy, and I'm going to tell you till I'm blue in the face. So I want just the next Israeli that tells you to be quiet, you have to explain that this is a joint project. And if the Israeli is not remembering very well, you have to remind them that when we have a fire or a drought or a war or whatever, we're here, hand in hand, and we're telling you it's a joint project. Well, if it's a joint project, you have a say. If you want to know more about what's happening in Israel, sign up to our newsletter. Raise your hand if you read the newsletter already. Great. So if the rest, is it any good? Is it any good? Is it? Is it good? You think it's good? I will slip you the $10 when we go out. If you want to sign up, then just approach Oli and me at the end, and we will be happy to give you cards.
What's the website?
We will give you cards with our names. That's how we're going to do it, because it's Shabbat and we don't want to do it. So I bring you Oli Elizachowski, the director of the Israel Religious Center.
Hi everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Very happy to be here. Thank you so much. We have just celebrated Israel's Independence Day 2 weeks ago. And the Israel Declaration of Independence, which Josh mentioned just a moment ago, includes a beautiful paragraph which states, "The state of Israel will be open for Jewish immigration and for ingathering of the exiles. It will foster the development of the country for the benefit of all its inhabitants. It will be based on freedom, justice, and peace, as envisaged by the prophets of Israel. It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It will safeguard the holy places of all religions." Beautiful paragraph. Israel's founding fathers and mothers sought to create a model state and a society, one which will be a light unto the nations. And this is what we read in this paragraph, but the problem is that the vision was never fully implemented. And what we at IRAC, the Israel Religious Action Center, seek to implement this vision, to work in Tikkun Olam, to mend and rectify the injustices that still exist in Israeli society. We never hesitate to challenge existing unjust practices, as Josh just mentioned. We work to ensure that there is more than one way to be Jewish, that all Jews should have a place at the Western Wall, that the Reform movement will receive equal government funding as the Orthodox do, that Israeli municipalities all across the country will not discriminate against Reform congregations in Israel's towns. We are not willing to accept the demand of some ultra-Orthodox that women will not be seen or heard in the public sphere. When ultra-Orthodox politicians tried a decade ago to create segregated buses in Israel, buses in which women were required to sit in the back of the bus, we petitioned the Supreme Court and won a landmark case which declared what should have been obvious, that gender segregation is illegal. We made the Israeli airline El Al change its discriminatory policy according to which flight attendant forced women to switch seats on planes because male ultra-Orthodox passengers refused to sit next to them just because they're women. We are now in the middle of a long, ongoing battle to remove modesty signs which hang in some ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods in Israel, asking women passing through those streets to dress modestly. And actually, just this week, we sued an internet news site, an ultra-Orthodox news site, which does not allow pictures of women to be shown on it and which blurs the images of women shown in the pictures appearing on the site. And they had the misfortune of putting a picture which showed me and other leaders from the Reform and Conservative movements and Women of the Wall in our meeting with the President of Israel last December, and all of the images of the women were blurred, so we sued the internet site because we're not willing to accept such practices. We seek to advance racial equality in Israel. When government-appointed Orthodox rabbis use their government post to incite to racism against Israeli Arabs, we turn to the Israeli government and to the Israeli court and make sure those rabbis are disciplined. We fight against businesses that illegally discriminate against Israeli Arabs. For example, one of our ongoing court cases deals with a major Israeli taxi app, the equivalent of Uber, which allows Israeli passengers to specifically choose Jewish rather than Arab drivers, a practice which is illegal according to Israel's law. We are also involved in voting rights campaigns and are now assisting Bedouins living in unrecognized villages in the Negev desert to have access to polling stations close to their homes, instead of having to travel long distances on election day in order to vote. We are helping Reform converts from all over the world, including lately from the Ukraine and Russia, to receive citizenship under Israel's law of return. And we offer legal aid to foreign, non-Jewish women who had to leave their abusive Israeli husbands and thus face the danger of losing their Israeli residency permits and are being at the risk of being deported from Israel. We have done this and so much more, and there is still so much to do. This week's portion, the portion which includes the Shemitah commandment. The Israeli Reform Rabbi Tamar Duvdevani says that Shemitah is an exercise in letting go, in opening one's clenched fist. Only after we will let go, we will be able to reach the promised land. I believe that the Shemitah commandments are not merely about the need every seventh year not to plow the land or to forsake the repayment of debts. Letting go is a bigger idea. We should let go of discrimination, of exclusion, of racism, of religious coercion and zealotry in order for us to reach the promised land and make the values of Israel's Declaration of Independence a reality. The Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai wrote, "Even a fist was once an open palm with fingers." We are seeking to turn the fist, the hatred, the intolerance, the exclusion, which are often voiced in Israel, into an open palm, the palm of inclusion, compassion, and tolerance, based on the age-old Jewish values of supporting the disadvantaged and lending our hand to the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. Our parasha states that every 50 years, when a jubilee year arrives, all the inhabitants of the land should be freed. Consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. This year we are marking not 50, but 35 years since Iraq was established. On this jubilee, we pledge to continue our work to promote freedom, equality, and justice for all the inhabitants of the state of Israel. And I want to thank you. I want to thank Rabbi Green and Jordan, and I want to thank Rabbi Josh Weinberg, who, among other things, also heads ALZA, the Zionist Arm of the Reform Movement in North America. And all the things you have heard are made possible by the support we receive from ALZA, which is so much appreciated. Thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom.
Yasher Koach and Shabbat Shalom to you both. Israel Religious Action Center is clearly an institution that all of you should know more about, and you can, as you hear, check them out online. And I want to say that Shabbat is always our chance to imagine the world as it should be. We say frequently on Shabbat that it's a taste of the world to come. And I think that each of you in your work with Iraq not only imagine or dream Israel as it should be, but you make Israel as it should be, in little ways and in big ways, and it's really an honor to have you both here. We move into the conclusion of our service with Aleinu L'Shabeach. We turn to page 586, and please rise if you are able.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakom, l'adeidu l'yotzer reshit, shelo asanu p'goyei haratzon, v'lo samanu k'mishkatot ha'adama, shelo samanu kahem, v'kor aleinu k'ro ha'onam, v'anachnu horim, u'mishachavim u'modim, l'ifnei melech, melchei hamlachim, hakadosh Ki hamalchut shel Chayim, u'le'omer ha'timloch b'chavod, ka'katuv b'toratecha, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed u'v'nema, ki ata Adonai le'melech al kol ha'aretz, hayom ha'hu yireh, Adonai echad, u'shmo echad. You may be seated.
As we move into words of the mourner's Kaddish, we want to invite you, if you are observing Shiva, or the first week of mourning, to please rise and share a name with us. If you're observing Shloshim, or the first 30 days of mourning, please rise and share a name. If you're here observing Shana, or the first year of mourning, please rise and share a name.
My wife wanted her schools.
If you're observing a yard site, please rise and share a name. In solidarity with our mourners, I invite us all to please rise. As this week, in addition to the names that we will remember in this community, we think of those who lost their lives in Buffalo last weekend. Roberta Drury, Margus Morrison, Andre McNeil, Aaron Salter, Geraldine Towie, Celestine Cheney, Hayward Patterson, Catherine Massey, Pearl Young, Ruth Whitfield, Zaire Goodman, Jennifer Warrington, and Christopher Braden. In addition to those names, we think of those whom we've lost in the past 30 days: Florian Matos, father of Peggy Levinson, father-in-law of Richard Levinson, and grandfather of Nicole and Danielle, as well as Edith Brenner, mother of Amy Brenner, mother-in-law of Scott Zucker, and grandmother of Nathaniel and Elia, and William Greenbaum, father of Anna Solomon, father-in-law of Michael Berger, and grandfather of Sylvia and Samuel, as well as the following Yorzites: Cecil Amdur, Ray Applebaum, Newton of Rutus, Molly Barron, Eric Baum, Blanche Burchard, James Brooks, Sylvia Busis, Arthur Butcher, Sylvia Corwin, Faye Kaufman, Herbert Fetterman, Rose Feinstein, Joseph Feuerstein, Brenda Fireman, Ben Fireman, Bernard Gersten, Monica Goldberg, Dan Geyer, Shirley Holab, Laeta Ezralite, Jack Kane, Jerome Kaufman, Martin King, Abraham Kotzisen, David Couric, Nathan Lesher, Max Levine, Abraham Levy, Rabbi Joseph Leaf, Doris Mandelbaum, Nathan Mass, Kathy Matty, Erwin Meyer, Jean Meal, Saul Morris, Whitlock Newman, Dr. Imre Ney, Norman Price, Adam Raymond, Seymour Rosenblatt, Saul Rosenblum, Leonard Rosenbluth, Francis Schlein, Robert Shapiro, Doris Stahl, Carolyn Steinbrink, William Strick, Rabbi Sidney Tedeschi, Florence Van Ralte, Sadie Weintraub, Sydney Wertheimer, Erwin Witkoff, Pauline Wolf, and Leonid Yeruski. Say Zichronam Livracha, may all of their memories be for a blessing. As we turn to page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei rabba, ve'alma divrach rutei ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayed chol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach v'olam olamei almaya, v'yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shnei v'kusha b'rechu, ve'ela v'kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, v'amiran v'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim alim v'el kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'el kol Yisrael, Al kol yoshvei tevel, imru, amen. May the one who makes peace in the high places make peace over us and over all who mourn, as we say, amen.
Our last piece is a request from our guests. What started as a call to each other for safety amongst the wall, amongst the hard work that they do, has become an anthem of women of the wall. My strength and the song of God shall be my salvation, a truly fitting text for such work and what it means when we sing together. On page 647. Uzi v'zimranya v'yehi l'shua. Shabbat shalom.
Okay, good. Ariel? How are you? Yeah. When? Oh, very cool.
Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom, Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. Shalom,
Lois.
Barbara.
Shabbat shalom, Howie.
Yeah, so they stopped by here and helped.
Everyone be well. Good job.
Thanks for the Mishaberach all this time. I'll tell you some news tomorrow.
Excellent.
Good news for tomorrow.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Go and Howard. Shabbat shalom.
Head out this way.
Shabbat shalom.
Simka's there still?
Can't hear me anyway. But Shabbat shalom, Rachel and Josh Weinberg. Yeah, maybe back there. I think that's it. Nobody left on this. Two people. Nobody left. Might as well get out. Let me get out.
And it's the best.